Welcome to another question and answer session. Today's question is, why must we keep our inner child active? I'll repeat. Why must we keep our inner child active? Positive side of inner child is it is curious, spontaneous, not opinionated, and innocent. That is what a child is. It is spontaneous, not opinionated, and it is innocent, curious. So the inner child keeps you discovering new things. Be happy about that. Live in the present. That is what the inner child does. That is why we should keep it alive. Next we will see, do we need an inner child? This is from logosynthesis, inspired by Harlow Broomes. From that website, I have got a few lines. The term inner ego state, inner child ego state. Some of the model, it is called inner child or child ego state. Both are the terms which is used. Originally used by Eric Berne, a Canadian psychoanalyst and the founder of transactional analysis, also known as TA. The original model of the ego states, published in 1961 in Berne's book Transactional Analysis in Psychotherapy. Transactional Analysis in Psychotherapy contained a 3 ego state model with a parent, child, and adult, in which only the adult is in contact with here and now. The parent is container of all messages given from the environment, especially the parents, and the child ego state hold all reactions to these messages stored at the level of child's development during the years. So these are the stages which is defined by Eric Berne in his transactional analysis in psychotherapy. The parent is a container of all messages given from the environment, especially the parents, and the child ego state holds all the reaction to these messages. Parents is the giver of the instruction and child reacts to those instructions and messages. This is stored at the child's developmental years. Berne's second model, the functional model of the ego states. This concept describes ego states not as frozen energy patterns, but as functions that must be fulfilled to lead a healthy life. So first model is a frozen model where the parent-child relationship was frozen from the early childhood. Next, he developed a model as parent, adult, and child as functional models, which will lead to a healthy life. The adult represents the clear reasoning parent, which is responsible or which stands for taking care and setting the limits. The parent sets the limits and takes care. The child stands for adaptation, rebellion. It adapts to parents' commands and rebels as well. That is a creative state. The rebellion state is a creative state with spontaneous natural curiosity as well as a capacity to react to the environment in new unexpected ways. So that is how a child is. Next is Inner Child, Psychology Today by Dr. Diamond. To begin with, the inner child is real, not literally, not physically, but figuratively, metaphorically real. The inner child is real, not physically, but figuratively, metaphorically real. It is like complexes in general, a psychological or phenomenological reality, and an extraordinary powerful one at that. Indeed, most mental disorders and destructive behavior patterns are, as Freud first intimated, more or less related to this unconscious part of ourselves. We are all once children and still have that child dwelling within us, but most adults are quite unaware of this. And this lack of conscious relatedness to our own inner child is precisely where so many behavior, emotional, and relationship difficulties stem from. So this is a quote from Inner Child in Psychology Today by Dr. Diamond. What he says is that all our behaviors, most of our behaviors, stem from the inner child. The responses we gave as children, the rebellion, the adaptation to parents' commands, all this from early childhood, that always stays with us. So most of our behaviors, whether it is destructive behavior or mental disorder or even creativity, the positive sides, stem from this children, the child state dwelling within us. But as adults, we are not conscious of this to our own inner child. So most of the behavior and emotional and relationship difficulties stem from this. The fact is that majority of so-called adults are not truly adults at all. We all get older physically. Anyone with a luck can do that. But psychologically speaking, this is not adulthood. Most of us stay with our childhood patterns. True adulthood hinges on acknowledging, accepting, and taking responsibility for loving and parenting one's own inner child. So what is real adulthood is accepting the inner child, taking responsibility for loving and parenting one's own inner child. That is the true adulthood. That's what the author says. For most adults, this never happens. Instead, their inner child has been denied, neglected, disparaged, abandoned, and rejected. So, the inner child is neglected, disparaged, abandoned, and rejected. We are told by the society, grow up, putting childish things aside. We are asked by the society to grow up, to become adults. We have been taught that our inner child, representing our childlike capacity for innocence, wonder, awe, sensitivity, and playfulness, must be stifled, quarantined, or even killed. So what the society says is, live out that innocence, wonder, and awe, joy, sensitivity, and playfulness. So this must be stifled, quarantined, or even killed. That is what the society says. The inner child comprises and potentiates the positive qualities. The inner child has that positive qualities of innocence and creativity. But it also holds the accumulated childhood hurts, traumas, fears, and angers. Grown-ups are convinced they have successfully outgrown, jettisoned, and left this child and its emotional baggage long behind. But this is far from truth. In fact, the so-called grown-ups or adults are unwittingly being constantly influenced or covertly controlled by this unconscious inner child. So we never outgrow our inner child. Actually, we are unconsciously controlled or influenced by this inner child. That's what the author says. For many, it is not an adult self directing their lives, but rather than emotionally wounded inner child inhabiting the adult body. It is not the adulthood actually, but the inner child inhabiting the adult body. Next, we will see a few lines from Who is the Wounded Inner Child by the Mindful. A wounded inner child is fearful, angry, jealous, or emotionally hurt little boy or girl dwelling in your conscious realm. A wounded inner child is fearful, angry, jealous, or emotionally hurt little boy or girl dwelling in your unconscious realm. Your wounded inner child lives in your adult psyche. It clouds your thoughts, feelings, and ability to reason effectively. It clouds your thoughts, feelings, and ability to reason effectively. Thus, at times, it takes hasty decisions on your behalf. Whenever you come across a stressful situation, you are covertly influenced by your inner child. So, when a stressful situation arises, we react from this wounded inner child. The responses are from this wounded inner child. This results in interpersonal conflicts and mental agony in the so-called mature adult life. It is the inner call of the child living within you. She craves your attention to reparent her with security and stability. So the inner child is living within you. She craves for your attention. Reparent with security and stability. So treat your inner child with a mature parent or adult state, that is with security and stability. Your wounded inner child has never felt safe as a child. Here safety means emotional and psychological support. Maybe your inner child was wounded because it lacked the emotional and psychological support. It failed to receive that from your actual parent. So treat it with a responsible attitude so that now it can receive that emotional and psychological support. Your inner child might have been wounded because of various sufferings it might have faced as a child. It can be abuse, parental aggression, and neglect, failure in studies, and low self-esteem. It might have faced abuse, parental aggression, and neglect, failure in studies, and low self-esteem. These painful wounds are repressed and carried forward into your adulthood, in your adult life. These painful wounds are repressed and carried forward to your adult life as sufferings beyond healing. It can have a far-reaching impact on your adult behavior and adjustment. Exploring the basics of inner child can give you insights into solving your adulthood problems. So if you explore your inner child, you can solve most of your adulthood problems. That is what the author says. So inner child we have seen to answer the question why we should take care of our inner child. It is important to take care because most of our actions stem from this inner child. So inner child is active whether you want it or not. Though we cover it with the facade of adult or parenthood, your own inner child is always active. And when there is a stressful situation, it may react in a negative way. So treat your inner child with care, support, emotional and psychological support. Then you may solve all your adulthood problems. That is our answer to the questioner who has asked why we must keep our inner child active. So with this we will end this episode. Stay with me for another episode. Subscribe to my channel. Share this video. Thank you.